Hello, and welcome to my presentation on how to weigh and recapsule your extended release medication. The primary focus will be on extended release antidepressants. Anything that comes in a capsule with an extended release pill or a BB, although the concept of weighing and recapsule can also be used for benzodiazepines. A little bit about me before we get started. So my name is Lisa Tivierge and I'm polymedicated. I've been on Klonopin, give or take, about 17 years. I did recently switch over to Valium. I've been on various antidepressants since the mid-1990s. Including up to my taper, where I was actually on two. I was on an SSNI and an SSRI. I've created this presentation in order to teach others this method, as well as to help others in how to be successful in their own taper journeys. We use the turtle or the tortoise as our mascot. Is based on the Aesop fable, The Tortoise and the Hare. And a successful taper is a marathon, not a sprint. Who wins in the end? It's the turtle. So that's why we're always saying, channel your inner turtle. And now for the ever important disclaimers. I am not a medical professional. The contents, information, and opinions provided in this presentation and demo are for educational and informative purposes only, and they have been developed by a layperson in the PsychMed tapering and withdrawal peer support community. Although I do work with medical professionals, I am not one. And as such, this is not intended to be a substitute for any professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor should it be taken as advice that you should taper off your medication. You must make that decision for yourself. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or starting or stopping a medication taper. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of the contents in this presentation. And it's especially important to never disregard any potential medical conditions you may be experiencing because you think they may be related to your taper. It's really important that we don't miss any potential underlying serious medical conditions because we think it's taper related. Also, it can be very risky to reduce or stop any psychiatric drug, and it's especially dangerous and potentially life-threatening when done rapidly or cold turkey. So don't do it. Any reductions to any psychiatric drug dosages should involve careful preparation, and it's best made in collaboration with a prescriber who's well-informed, very supportive about a wide range of risk-minimizing approaches to psychiatric drug tapering. So before you begin your taper, as with any journey, it's very important to know what to expect, what you might encounter along your journey, plan for what you might expect, and prepare for that. So I akin this to taking a trip. Perhaps you're going to go visit a friend, you're going to a foreign country, doesn't matter. How are you going to get there? Are you going by car? Are you going by plane? Do you need to purchase gas? Do you need to pack a cooler? What do you pack in your luggage? What do you expect the weather to be like? Do you expect that perhaps when you get there it might be cold, it might be hot, so you plan accordingly? Do you pack bug spray? And I think you understand where I'm going with this. So on your journey, what symptoms, what can you expect to have? Perhaps it might be a touch of anxiety. Well, how are you going to address that anxiety? It may be insomnia. How are you going to address that insomnia? And so forth. Another thing is that I will never, ever tell you that it's a schedule. I will always tell you that it's a plan. And the reason is that plans are meant to change, and they may change based on new information or how your body is reacting, or perhaps life and situational events that are occurring. So, for example, you may find that you may have to hold your taper for an extra week because some of the symptoms need to reside, or perhaps you want to take a trip with a loved one or your family, and so you're going to pause your taper. That's fine, and we encourage that. Schedules, on the other hand, I believe, set people up to fail. And the reason is that if you hold yourself to a schedule and your body says, hey, this is too aggressive for me, it's going too high, too fast, people believe that they are failing in their taper, when in reality, it's the schedule that is failing them. And I encourage you to do as much research as possible and to understand what to expect as you go on this journey. Several informational websites that I highly recommend are Surviving Antidepressants, the Benzodiazepine Information Coalition, Mad in America, and Inner Compass all have great information. And remember, always start your taper from a stable place and listen to your body. And stable means you're feeling as good as you possibly can. It's very hard to taper when you're tapering from an unstable place. And a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. So we're going to talk about why you may consider weighing and recapsule. We're going to talk about the equipment, how to calculate a baseline. We'll talk about how to make it. We'll talk about how to start, why journaling and tracking is important. I do have a demo. We'll do a little bit of a Q&A, and then we'll talk more about the Global PsychMed Support Network. So why should you consider weighing and recapsule? Well, your medication is an extended release, also known as XR, and can't be made into a liquid compound. And for this presentation, we're mainly focused on antidepressants, although many people weigh and recapsule their benzodiazepines. Back to antidepressants. A lot of antidepressants come as an extended release. And if you open the capsule, you will see beads, BBs, and so forth. Now, those can't be made into a liquid compound. The other factor that you may want to consider is that generics are allowed a wide variance within each capsule, or the beads inside the capsule. So each one weighs and has a different variance of amount of medication inside. Well, if you have a name brand such as Effexor XR, it's very easy to bead count with that. However, if you have a generic such as myself, Venlafaxine XR, I will not have the same amount of accuracy as bead counting. And that brings us into our CATS model. So what does CATS stand for? C is for consistency, cost, and consumption. We want to be extremely consistent when it comes to our taper. We also want to make sure that we're looking at cost. We don't want to be tossing medication. We want to be consuming an accurate amount of medication as well, which is the A in CATS, is accuracy. Some people are able to tolerate a wider range of variance in their medication than others. So for example, myself, I'm a poor metabolizer. I metabolize really, really well. I also notice variances in my medication very, very well. So for me, accuracy is extremely important. Tempo. Slow and low is the tempo. We know that a successful psychiatric medication taper is slow and low, meaning slow in speed, low in reduction. Most of the standard protocol, well, actually, all the standard protocols were based on a 6-week schedule, and that is just simply too fast and unsafe. The S is for stability and simplicity. We want to be kind to our central nervous systems, and we also want to keep it simple for ourselves. And now for the equipment that you'll need. So the equipment that you're going to need, you're going to want to have a container so that you can store any excess medication, gelatin capsules, or they also come in vegan options, which is very nice. You'll need a gem scale for accuracy for weighing. A capsule machine will make your life extremely simple and helpful when you're recapsuling. Tweezers when you're picking up those little BBs. And also a funnel. A funnel can make it a lot easier when you're pouring your beads into the new capsule. All right, let's get started and calculate your baseline. So the first thing you're going to do is calculate a baseline weight. And we talked about this a little bit before, but generics are allowed a huge amount of variance. So what I recommend is getting an average baseline weight in order to start your taper. That becomes your taper weight. And when I did mine, I used a sample size of 10 capsules. What you do is you open each capsule, you weigh it on your gem scale, write down the weight, take it, discard it into a jar, and then you do the next one until you've weighed all 10. You average the weight, and that becomes your baseline taper weight. And I promise you, you are going to be more accurate than any of the pharmaceutical companies. All right, it's time to put together a taper plan. Now we want to calculate a reduction rate based on our baseline. And that just is the percentage you want to start with. It could be 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, and so forth. Remember the tempo. It's always slow and low. Slow and low is the tempo. This is the golden rule. Give yourself time to acclimate to the new normal before increasing your taper amount or doing your next reduction. The guide rail for tapers is usually 10% per month. This gives us a nice safety rail to help protect our central nervous system. Now, that being said, this is going to vary person by person and include some variables. How long have you been on the medication itself, your particular genetics, your particular situational circumstances, and a large number of unknown variables that we're still learning. Some people may be able to go faster. Some people are going to go slower. It really is an individual journey. And remember, it's always easier to start low and go up gradually than it is to start too high and too fast. You want to set yourself up for success. Just like in preparation for a marathon, you wouldn't go and run 3 miles the first day. You would start slow and build yourself up. So using me as an example, I want to taper starting from 150 milligrams of Venlafaxine XR. And I'm going to start at 1% to see how I react, see what my body does. So I've done my baseline calculations, and my baseline weight is 0.354 grams per capsule. Therefore, I know that 150 milligrams is going to equal 0.354 grams. That's my baseline. And you can see I didn't put a date there, but my first reduction is going to be 1%. So I simply calculate what is 1% of 0.354 grams. That's 0.350 grams. I just multiply it out, and to know about how many milligrams that is. 1% of 150 grams is 148.5 milligrams. So 148.5 milligrams becomes my new daily dose. When you're ready to do your next reduction, calculate your new reduction using the previous reduction. And continuing with our previous example, my current dose is 148.5 milligrams. I've decided that I've tolerated that pretty well. I'm feeling pretty good, so I want to see what a 2% reduction would be. So I would just simply do a 2% reduction from my previous reduction to find my new reduction dose. So here in my table, you can see I've done 2%, and I've done 2% of 0.350 grams. That gives me 0.343 grams. 2% from 148.5 milligrams gives me 145.53 milligrams, and that becomes my new taper dose. Now let's talk about creating a taper plan. And let's talk about a sample taper plan. Ha! It's a plan. It's not a schedule. Remember, slow and low is the tempo. Only go as fast as your body can tolerate. Give yourself enough time to acclimate to the new normal between reductions before you increase the taper amount or make the next reduction. Each reduction can be different. Remember the 80-20 rule. Tapering can be uncomfortable, and we want to keep ourselves as functional as possible, and I do not believe in suffering. So 80% functional, meaning you're doing the best you can, you're living life as much as possible. Maybe 20% of the time you have withdrawal symptoms or things that are coming up that you need to address. Always hold when you need to. Adjust your reduction amounts if you need to. Maybe you need to hold an extra week so that you feel better. Maybe you need to reduce your percentage amount because your body's saying, hey, this is getting a little bit too high for me. Usually the lower you go in your taper, the harder it can be on your body because it's like you're paying off the principal. So think about a car payment or maybe a mortgage. Up front, you're paying off a lot of the interest, but as you get lower, you're hitting on that principal. And it's a similar concept when we talk about a medication taper. Get as much support as possible. Family, friends, support groups. I do say use the forums with caution. Forums can be a great means of support, but they can also be an echo chamber of suffering and trauma. And so I'd say get support wherever you can, but just proceed with caution. You want to get positive support. You don't want toxic positivity, but you also don't want to hear all of the negativity, because there are really good things that also happen when you start coming off of these medications. And finally, this can be really hard, so be kind to yourself. Let's talk about why it can be really helpful to journal your journey. So why is it important to journal and to track your taper? Well, documenting your journey and your experiences can be really helpful, and it may be separate from how you track your taper. So for example, my taper journal is separate from my personal experiences diary. And it helps you to track your symptoms and what helped you to manage each. I use a diary. Some people just use a calendar. Some people have created heat maps. It doesn't matter. Just whatever helps you. This is really for you. But tracking your symptoms and what helped you to manage each one helps you to notice patterns, and then you can plan accordingly. So for example, on my Venlafaxine XR taper, based on the medication's half-life, day 3 is my worst day. Well, knowing that, I can plan accordingly. So I make my taper reduction so that my worst day hits on the weekend. That way, I'm not missing any work. I don't have to worry about having to be anywhere. I can also plan my reductions around any events or holidays or anything that may come up in life where I don't want my taper to interfere with my life. I am in charge of my taper. It helps you track the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, yes, tapers can be very uncomfortable, but there's very positive things that can happen with a taper. So for example, I started noticing colors. Colors started coming back. I said, has the sky always been that blue? I started feeling again. I didn't realize just how much emotion had been suppressed until I started on my taper journey. And yes, there are withdrawal symptoms that I do need to deal with that are not always so pleasant. Sometimes I get tinnitus, sometimes I get antidepressant belly or insomnia. But knowing what to expect and the tools and techniques that have helped me to manage through them is extremely helpful. So a couple of notes about the demo. The highly paid, meaning free, cameraman, my husband, didn't realize I wanted you to see the numbers on the gem scale as I did the baseline weight. So you'll see the video go in and out of focus. I thought it was more important to get this out there than to worry about remaking it, although I may remake this later. The editor, who's also highly paid, free, and my husband, worked really hard on editing out several cuss words as you see me playing with those BBs. I hope you still find this very helpful for you. Hi there, my name is Lisa Tivierge, and I am going to demonstrate today the tools and techniques that you will need in order to prepare your generic antidepressant taper that is an extended release capsule. So for example, when you are prescribed Effexor or Cymbalta, which is a brand name, you can get away with using a bead count. However, if you're prescribed a generic extended release, such as in my case Venlafaxine XR, what you will need to do is weigh, and then the next step that I do is recapsule. The materials that I've used to do this have all been purchased on Amazon. So I have purchased a ginormous bag of gelatin capsules. I have purchased a capsule making machine. I've purchased what is called a gem scale. This is a smart Weigh, and you'll see that it comes with everything that you're going to need. I have a jar to pour my capsules in, and I also have my taper book. I also purchased these little funnels, which are great to use to pour the beads into the capsules when I make them. So the first thing that you're going to want to do when you're starting out is to establish a baseline weight, especially for your generics. The reason I'm going to establish a baseline is because generics are allowed a spread of variance within each pill. And as you know, when it comes to tapering, we want to make sure that we have consistency, accuracy, our tempo, and stability. And the only way to do that is to make sure that we're as accurate as possible. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take 10 pills and I'm going to weigh each pill and then get an average weight, and that will become my baseline weight. So I will take 10 Venlafaxine XR capsules. Now you may find that you may want to just do 5. For me, my comfort level was base 10, so that's what we're going to do. Now here comes the fun part. We get to play with BBs. So you take your gem scale, your smart, here's a smart Weigh. I'm going to turn that on. I have my jar prepared. Now, one of the fun things about the gem scale is that you will often be calibrating your scale for accuracy. So, what we're going to do is we're going to hit mode till the calculation comes up, hit mode again. I will take my 20-pound weight, place it on the scale. Tells me to put the 40. I see pass, that means it is now calibrated. I will put my dish onto the scale, and then I will hit tare to subtract out the weight of the scale. So when I break open my capsule, which is to get the weight, it's only going to be weighing the capsule. Okay. And for this capsule, it is 0.449. I'll take and break that down. And then I'm just going to discard these BBs, which is actually the extended release capsules, into my jar, and then I'm going to weigh the next one. So you see it's a little off. For me, 0.004 is acceptable. I'll just hit tare again, zero it out, and I'm going to repeat this 10 times. There we go. Oh, this is the fun part when it doesn't want to come out. Forget that one. Oh, good times. Yeah. I hope you're going to edit some of this out. This is what I go through every week. Oh, and then you see we dropped a BB there. Okay, so this weight is 0.441. You already see a difference? Take this, I'm going to dump it out. I'm going to do this 8 more times. This is why I call it playing with BBs. Okay, that one's 0.441. Usually a pinch and twist usually works. There we go. 0.442. One more. Oh, 0.447. Okay, so you can see by the variations of the numbers the allowance that the manufacturers are allowed to have with your medication. Okay. So the next step, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the median weight, and that's just simply by taking an average. So 0.449 plus 0.441 plus 0.456 plus 0.451 plus 0.443 4 plus 0.442 plus 0.447 gives me a total of 3.573. I'm going to divide that by 10, and 0.3573, I'm just going to round that back up, so 0.357 becomes our baseline weight for our taper. So I have 0.357 as my baseline weight for my 150 milligrams of Venlafaxine XR. So now what I want to do is I want to set up my taper. And this is my taper book. Some people like to use spreadsheets, and I admit I set up complicated spreadsheets, and I gave that up fairly quickly because of the keep it simple, silly. And I found that using a book really was just the easiest method for me. And next, what I'm going to show you in theory, so if we're starting at 0.357, so top 0.357, so my baseline weight. I'll write the date. You can see I've done that here in my book. Now when I did it, my baseline weight using 10 was 0.458. So you can see the difference that manufacturers are allowed to use. I wrote the date, the percentage, and then just calculated from there. So now that you have your baseline weight and you're going to start your taper, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to prepare your capsules. And I bought this machine. You can buy them smaller. This one happens to make 100 at a time. I never do. But what you do is you take your capsules, and how I figured out the size capsule to buy is online on Amazon, I simply took, so it seems really complicated, but really all I did
was when I went to Amazon to buy my capsules, they have pictures of the sizes, and I just took the closest size to the Venlafaxine XR capsule that I currently used, and I bought that. I bought this ginormous bag over a year ago, and you can see there's plenty of capsules, which is really good because if you screw up a capsule, well, you've got plenty more to use. So the first thing you're going to do is what I like to do is I like to set up my capsules in preparation. So this week I'm just making a week's worth, so I'm just going to count out 7. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And there's a couple of plates that you use in your capsules. You have your body plate. Just put the body of the capsule in. You have your capping plate. Now, one thing to remember, depending on your machine, and I learned this the hard way, so learn from me, is that when you go to cap, you flip everything over. So start at the other side. Put your caps on the other side. So that way when you go to cap and you flip it over, everything's going to line up perfectly. And I'm going to put in 7. 7 little bodies, 7 little caps. Usually I have found, for me, again, when you start your taper, you never know how your body is going to react. I started out at 1%, increased to 2%, all the way up to where I found where my 80-20 sweet spot, 80% functional, 20% symptoms I could deal with, was 5% every 2 weeks. That kept me within the 10% guide rails of a safe taper. I'm getting lower and lower on my venlafaxine dose. And so it's getting a little harder and harder for me. And I think about it, the way to think about it is you're paying more on the principal. So if you think about making a car payment, or you think about making a mortgage payment up front, you're paying more on the interest. But as you get lower and lower and lower, the payments are more going towards the principal. So it becomes less and less more of the it's never about the milligrams, it's the mileage. So anyway, so back to, I'm going to make my capsules for the week. I'm at about 1% right now, is where I can be. That's okay. Small forward progress is still making progress. Okay, so I have my 7 set up, my 7 on my capping plate. This is the nice green capping plate. This sits nicely on top, and then I'm just going to go ahead and put the capping plate aside. Just put that aside for now. I bought these wonderful little funnels off Amazon, and I just put my funnel into the first capsule that I'm going to make. So let me show you. So you can see this is my taper book. I've written down the percentage. You can see where I started going up, where I've held, and where I am today. So, write today's date. I don't know what today's date. Oh look, it's almost Halloween, so 10:30. I'm going to make a 1% reduction. I haven't been feeling well. I think that's where I am. You get in tune to where your body is going to be. So I just do the math. 1% of my weight, I'm currently, which was 0.104. I'm going to show you a cute, neat little trick here with the math. 0.104. If you multiply it by 0.99, that will give you the weight. It's just a cute little shortcut that you can use. But you can always multiply it by 0.01 and subtract it out. This way is a little quicker. I'm going to round up, so it's going to be 103. And then I want an estimated milligrams to show myself where I am. So currently I'm at around 31.82 milligrams. 82 times 0.99. It gives me 31.50. All right, small reduction, still making progress. So the weight that I'm going to be targeting is, for me, 0.103. Okay, now get your scale. Hey, look, there's some little BBs in there. All right. Turn it back on. Spoon does come with the set, so do these wonderful little dishes, and the tweezers to play with the BBs. I'm going to recalculate again. Press down mode. Oh, it's deciding to do a little fun little thing here. I want to make sure it's in grams. There we go. Press and hold mode. There we go. Just calculate again. 20 milligrams, 20. We get 40. Great, we've got a pass. Put my dish. Wait till it settles. You can tell it's settled. I get a nice little dot there. It's like a green light, ready for go. Hit the tar button. And now it's time to weigh. Now let's see, is this, I just gently and slowly pour in the BB's Venlafaxine XR capsules onto the dish until I get close to 0.103. Oh, look at that. Perfect, perfect pour in the first one. Look at that. And then I take it and I pour it into my capsule. Okay. Now, I see that the scale is now showing at 0.008. That's not a comfortable difference for me, so I'm going to recalibrate my scale. It's ready for the 40, the other 20, and we've got a pass. Awesome. I move my funnel to the next capsule. My dish back on the scale. Green light go, hit the tar button, and let's try this. I'm going to do this 7 more times. 6 more times, I've already made one. Okay, so we've hit 0.04. Now, remember, cats, we want to be accurate. So now I get to play guess which BB is going to get me to 0.103. This is why I call it playing with BBs. So let's take this one, take it off. Now I'm down to 0.012. Put a couple BBs back on. What does it get me? Okay. A couple more BBs. 06, okay. So after a while, you start to see, get a feel for, because each one of these little BBs, I shouldn't say BB, each one of these little capsules is a varying weight and size because it's a generic. If it was a brand name Effexor XR or Zymbalta XR, I could do bead counting and be accurate, but I can't because I have a generic. 04, well, let's see, maybe is this good? Oh, is that BB gonna, let's see, is it gonna be this BB? No, what about this BB? Call it playing with BBs because honestly, you have to have a little bit of sense of humor with this or sometimes you just want to cry. So I got my weight, poured into my capsule, I'll move on to the next one. And you can see, oh, there we go. It's amazing. Oh, so close. Just how few of these little capsules I have to take to do my taper. It's amazing, isn't it? How potent these little things are. Now I'm down to 100. All right, so let's see what's gonna get me down. What's gonna get me to where I need to be? Because again, super accuracy. I promise you, you're gonna be more accurate than the pharmaceutical companies ever will be. And yes, this is legitimately. Any doctors who are watching, this is legitimately what we've got to do. Let's see, drop a couple another BB on there. Look at that, perfect. Okay, that's an empty capsule. Pour, move to the next one. All right, so we're over my tolerance. My tolerance for the scale is at 0.005. So if it's below 0.005, I'm comfortable with just hitting the TARI button. But if it's over, I'm going to recalculate. Gem scales are very, very sensitive. It's okay. We're just going to recalculate and we're going to do the next one. Pass. Let go. Hit my tear. And I put my BBs. You get pretty good at guessing at about what you need to pour onto your dish. So I've done 7 and now we're ready to cap. Okay, put that aside and here's my capping plate. Remember, flip it over. Now, this is what you're going to want to do is press firmly once. Capsules and cross your fingers that every one of them is capped, or you get to measure out another cap. There we go. So I got my 7 for the week. There's 1. Oh, good times. Oh, look at that. I didn't screw up a capsule this week. And there are Right. Oh, look, a couple little errant BBs. I'll just throw those away. So there are my 7 capsules that I've made for this reduction this week. And that is how you weigh and recapsule your extended release antidepressant. If you have any questions or if you would like some one-on-one help, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are here to help. I hope this was helpful for you. And take care, be safe, and you can do this.
And now for some quick Q&A. So some of the questions I received the most are, I'm scared, I'm terrified, or I'm excited. Well, that's completely normal. Of course you're going to be scared. You've been told that you have a condition and that you need this medication for the rest of your life. You may be terrified because you don't know what to expect. That's also completely normal. You may be excited to get started. That's also completely normal. You may be thinking, what if you can't do this? Well, I'm here to tell you, you can do this. What if you've tried tapering before and you couldn't do it? Well, there may be a number of reasons why. You may have tried by starting at too high of a reduction or going too fast. And your body said, no, I can't do that. So remember, slow and low is the tempo. And if you want more help, we're here to help. You're not alone in this. Contact us at contact.gbsn@gmail.com. Remember, you are not alone. And a little bit about us. We are a community and donation-based peer support network. Started as a meetup in 2019, intended for those who are looking for face-to-face, real-time support with others who are also tapering and going through these experiences. Human beings are meant to communicate face-to-face. 70% of our communication is nonverbal. We offer one-on-one peer support and coaching. We have weekly support groups over Zoom. In those groups, we use skills, tools, and techniques that are based on DBT, CBT, and ACT. And as we grow, I really hope to be able to offer more for the community. I have left a link in the show notes to the meetup group, and I hope to see you there. And remember, this is one of my favorite quotes, and it's from Muhammad Ali. Remember, impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they've been given than to explore the power they have to change it. Impossible is not a fact. It's an opinion. Impossible is not a declaration. It's a dare. Impossible is potential. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing.